Good morning. It's the 16th of October. You're watching Eswatini TV's Kusile Breakfast Show, and you're kickstarting your Thursday morning. You have made your first smart decision of the day. Thank you for tuning in and for choosing us. We promise to give you a very educational, informative, perhaps entertaining program today. It's going to be an informative one indeed, and we're just happy to be here. Myself and Kusile, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you, Swizzle?
Should I lie or should I tell you the truth?
I mean, go for it. Either.
Okay.
Tell the truth, actually. But
Fighting
I will
flu.
say...
I'm fighting flu.
Well, I'd say you're getting better.
I am getting better, but I
Yeah.
just hate being sick.
Do you feel like you're getting better?
Yeah, 100%. My throat is good now. I'm not coughing. It's just one of my nostrils is blocked.
You know, it's good.
But I'll be all right.
Yeah, it's the progress, really, that we need. A very good morning
and
welcome to the show. On the program today, in commemoration of the International Day of the Girl Child, observed under the global theme, The Girl I Am, The Change I Lead, Girls on the Front Lines of Crisis. We gather at a critical moment to reflect on the challenges, resilience and unstoppable potential of the girl child. As Eswatini prepares to commemorate this day at the Lubombo Central High School in Sitegi on Friday, we are reminded that investing in girls is not a charitable cause. It is rather a strategic imperative for national development, social justice and lasting peace. In conversation with gender officials from the UNFPA Eswatini and the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, we elevate their realities, their rights and their unheard voices and the policies that define the future of every girl in this very kingdom.
And of course, the construction, that may still be under the 35% mark, but already the Mbagani Dam has ignited conversations about compensation, about labor impact, as well as the economic prospects of relocated communities. You'll remember His Majesty's visit to the site this week carried two signals: one, commendation for workers' safety, as well as a firm expectation that the people moved to make way for the dam must experience a measurable rise in their standard of living. With 700 workers on site, compensation reportedly delivered, and promises of tarred roads and agricultural opportunities, the real test lies in whether this infrastructure will translate into livelihoods, equity and returns. And they have no choice. His Majesty the King has given them a command, a very firm one, to change those economic and social current situations that are surfacing or prevailing at that very same place, and of course in the broader economy of the Kingdom of Eswatini. So an interesting conversation that we want to have with Sandra Spear this morning, particularly around the implications of that development. But also, we are not going to be remiss. We are going to also speak about His Majesty III, who has spoken on the Royal Chozini Private Game Reserve in Lavumisa yesterday under the Somdongo Inkula in hosting the Big Five animals, as well as the implications, the economic implications for that particular development. All of that, this 6:30 conversation. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Kusile Breakfast Show.
But first, let's have a look at what is making headlines in print this morning. And some stories that we're waking up to in our newspapers, starting off strong with the Eswatini Observer. Public sector unions yield to budget pressure. Disappointed PSUs say signed deal is not what they were hoping for. In other news, His Majesty King Mswati III calls for Big Five at Chozini Game Reserve. In other stories making headlines on the Eswatini Observer, Faklata suspect facing 190 charges. That's on page 3 of the Eswatini Observer. And fired graduate gets a job. Congratulations to her.
Yep, 100%. Look at other stories there. Marathon goes global. Mbube pulls over 6,000 people. His Majesty will grace event. This is a story around the Eswatini National Provident Fund that has announced that His Majesty King Mswati III will grace the highly anticipated Mbube Marathon this Saturday, leading the charge alongside more than 6,000 participants. Good looking out on that one. On other stories, it's a tough match. This is Simba SC manager Patrick Renyamamu, who says his team is fully prepared for a difficult challenge ahead of their second preliminary round CAF Champions League match against Nsingizini at Somhlolo National Stadium on Sunday. Royal Leopard vowed to represent country with pride in the CAF Confederation Cup, where they are heading into their continental assignment with confidence and unity. The last story speaks to AE, who has tackled timekeeping disputes. That is the athletics Eswatini that recently hosted an electronic timing workshop to equip officials with the skills that are necessary to eliminate disputes over athletes' timing during competitions.
Moving on to the front page of the Eswatini Daily News. His Majesty King Mswati III has officially handed over the Royal Jozini Game Reserve to the surrounding community, marking a new chapter of job creation, tourism expansion and wildlife conservation in the Lubombo region.
Right.
While on the same story, over 200 million Emalangeni invested in world-class infrastructure. Royal Jozini, well, that is at least according to the Royal Jozini chairman. In other stories making headlines on the Eswatini Daily News, mixed feelings over approved 100% salary review. That's on page 3. And in other stories, Parley hits back at Chief Justice over threats to Hugwini, Member of Parliament.
International runners for Mbube Marathon, the biggest marathon in the country, will see international runners from the United States, others from England taking part on Saturday. In our stories, Green Mamba is in Costa do Sol friendly, while World Cup qualifiers speaks to how Bruce transformed Bafana's fortunes. These are your headlines this Thursday morning.
Also, be sure to keep up with the Eswatini TV News Facebook page for some of the latest events and making headlines during the day. Otherwise, for now, we'll catch a break. After that, our first bulletin for the day.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Iphinza nguvusela ngolomhlenati tindzaba tecala lisuku silo semhlaba sithi live leSwatini kumele lithuthukise tekuvakasha kude tifake isandla lesibonakalako kugcikeni noma ke kugcikeni kwelisonto lekuthuthukisa umnotho welive kanye nekwakha emathuba emisebenzi njengoba kusemgomeni welive uthi likhona ukwakha emathuba emisebenzi yeveni. Ingwenyama beyiphefumula esifundzeni saseshiselweni ngesikhathi ivakashele indzawo yekwakhiwa kwelihhotela i-7th on the Hill kaQomtaba kanye ne-Royal Jozini Game Reserve.
Silo semhlaba ekufikeni kwaso ehotela lelisakhiwa i-7th on the Hill sifike semukelwa abaphathi nebhodi yalendzawo. Imbube yemhlaba beyisingethwe bomake emakhosikazi sigodlo tindvuna tembuso boba betukhulu kanye nemabandla ekweluleka. Sihlalo walomsebenzi nguNoah Nyawo kanti umphathi nguLucius Magagula bese kuthi labanye labayingcenye yalomsebenzi bafa ekhathi lizinyane umvanenkosi Majaha Dumakude kanye na Nyawo Londlovu. Ingwenyama yabeka kede kuvakasha njengaleminye imikhakha lekumele ifake isandla lesimandi kuphakamisa live nekuthuthukisa umnotho welive. Dokuvakasha tibheke ukuthi tiphindze futhi tifake isandla ekwakhiweni kwemathuba emisebenzi kude kutawuthuthuka timpilo tebantfu. Siphefumula umhlaba silo semhlaba sithele Eswatini kumele ligcine likhonile kukhangati ivakashi letiningi emhlabeni kuthi tite even leSwatini.
Kukhangati ivakashi eveni tite la titokwati ukuthi tithi natifikile lapha tikhanze ma facilities la ngeyo kahle hle letitawukwati ukuthi tithi nasetihleli lihlale kahle ngoba live lakithi leSwatini sifuna ukuthi likhange tivakashi tibe tinyendi nangihamba umhlaba uyokhanze ukuthi bakhuluma ngekuthi tivakashi emhlabeni ti noma kulelo live ukhanze ukuthi babala ukuthi labafika ngeminyaka babalele kubo 100 million webantfu ubone ke lamanye mave akhuluma ngabo 36 million ngelanga ukuthi kwenca nje kulelo live kukhulunywa nga 36 million buke ukuthi nangabe sebantu bafike evene bang 100 million labo bantu labo noma bangaspenda 1 cent amunye kungiko ke kumgcoka lo ukuthi sikwakhe lo msebenzi letawukhona kukhanga tivakashi njoba kubukwe live lonke ukuthi ichithisaka njoba na lapha eshiselweni nje kubukwa nangakhona ukuthi kutosetshenzwa kubonakale kuhle nasikhanza njoba nani bayasho lapha njoba ningu 150 nine lesenisebenza lapha lekubonalisa ukuthi loyo 150 naye kungemehluko lomkhulu lo ukuthi athole la atawuvukela khona ngoba kuvukela sekwaba impilo yemhlaba.
Alikhulu nemashumi lasihlanu eMaswati lasavele acashiwe kulomsebenzi kanti inombolo tibheke ukuthi tingeteke njalo uma kungena letinye tigaba talomsebenzi lesilo semhlaba sivedile ukuthi lomunye umgomo welive ukuthi leSwatini lakhe emathuba emisebenzi lenele. Lo msebenzi waleli hotela lochubeka ubheke ukuthi ubide ngetulu kwa 1 billion emalangeni nase ufike emaphethelweni kani ubheke ukuthi futhi uchubeke ngetigaba letintathu njengoba kwanyalo usesigabeni sekucala. Lena ndzawo ibheke ukuthi ibe nelihotela le5 star, indzawo yekudlela, emahovisi nendzawo yekukhangisa imisebenzi yetandla kubala lokumbalwa. Kulomsebenzi kunemitile le14 lesusiwe njengoba tindlu talemindeni sedivele takhiwe kanike lemindeni ibheke ukuthi ingene kito ekupheleni kwenyanga. Sigaba sekucala sibite ngetulu kwemalangeni latigitsi letingemakhulu lamabili, sesibili sitawubita tigitsi letingemakhulu lamathathu temalangeni bese kuthi sesithathu sibita tigitsi temalangeni letilinganiselwa emakhuluni lasihlanu. Nase ufike emaphethelweni lona msebenzi ubheke ukuthi uphinze futhi ube nemaplot ekwakha emakhaya noma tindlu, indzawo yekutivocavoca, sikolo lesitawucala kusukela ebangeni laka grade R kuya ka form 5 kanye nenyuvesi letawubuketa lihlangothi lwetebuchwephesha tempilo netemunjinela kubala lokumbalwa. Silo semhlaba sihlanyele sihlahla kulendzawo lesekuyawusala nasemlandweni ukuthi kuke kwanyethela ingwenyama kulendzawo. Silo semhlaba siphinze savakashela iRoyal Chozini Game Reserve lapho khona ingwenyama imukelwe baphathi bayo lendzawo. Bobabetukhulu nesive semimango lesithudane nalendzawo nabo baphume ngetinkani kutawuthamela lona lilanga. Esikhathini lesiningi ingwenyama ike yagcizelela ukuthi kuthuthukiswa kolihlangothi lotekuvakasha emimangweni kumele kulethe intuthuko lebonakalako esiveni sayo lemimango. Lendzawo lena ikanekiseka lavumisa esifundzeni saseshiselweni kani ineledamu lelizuza sive sakulendzawo kanye nasephongo la even leNingizimu Afrika. Siphefumula umhlaba silo semhlaba sethulelo umsebenzi emimangweni lethudane nayo yaphinze futhi ingwenyama yagcizelela ukuthi sive siphathe kahle ngetandla totimbili kude nesitukulwane lesitako sitawuzuza kiyo. Ingwenyama iphinze futhi yathumisa tinhlelo nemaphupho alendzawo ekukhula nekuthuthuka.
Sithumisa ke ukuthi ke yonke lemsebenzi inetha nemathuba khona lapha esiveni nakulendzawo ukuthi sive sibe nemathuba ukuthi sisebente tito khula letindzawo tibe nelikusasa lelihle kwendele ukuthi ke kube kunyenti nalokwa lesitawukwenda kube ingcenye yawo lo msebenzi njengoba silapha nje eJosini game park nakhona kubonakalise ukuthi singetetela kule msebenzi leseyivele isetshenzwa ebekunene. Sengaba ngiko kubusisa nawo lo msebenzi walapho nawo ovele ubusisiwe senawo nakelela kahle ebekunene. Siyabonga uNkulunkulu uyawusibusisa sonke bekunene.
Lo msebenzi lona ke wasukuyiswa ngeminyaka yabu 2006 libandla lebatshaltimali ngenhloso yokonga imvelo nokukhangisa buhle bemvelo evele Eswatini. Edintsabeni kubika Pholile Mazia anathabiso Dlamini kalavumisa.
Uhulumende uthi bophelele ekuqinisekiseni ukuthi bamfula abakhobateke ngaboni emehlweni baphila emimangweni labakhona khona kuphila kahle njengawo wonke umuntu. Lokuvetwe lisekela lamabhalane lomkhulu evisini eliphila mvunankulu uMakhosi Simelane lebekamelele liphila mvunankulu umhlonishwa Kusile Dladla emsebenzini wekugubhala ilanga lakamhlaba lwendvuku lemhlophe lesebenziswa abamfula abakhobateke ngaboni emehlweni i-Annual International White Cane Day. Lolu suku belibanjelwe esikolweni eMzimbofu kanti lugujwe ngaphansi kwesihloko lesithi kususa tonke tihibe kutela abakhobateke ngaboni emehlweni bakhona kuphila kahle.
Kubukana ukuthi tinsayatini labanato lapho khona uhulumende kufanele sangenelele khona. Sitawukhumbula ukuthi uhulumende tintfo letiningi nathi singumnyango waka-DPM asi-implementi kangako. Senda le environment nje si-coordinator ukuthi ibe conducive. Baningi-ke labasibambisa ngokusita la lawo ma-regulations aka-disability ngawo latawenda ukuthi kusunguleke lihhovisi lelitawuthiwa la registrar lobuka tindzaba tebantu labakhubatekile. Tibukwa-ke tonke-ke ngekuhlukahlukana kwetinhlobo tekukhubateka kufaka ekhatsi laba lesihlangane ngabo lamuhla. Ezi-ke kusukumiswa lawo ma-structures lakhona ngekusho kwalomthetho ayakhona-ke wona lokho ukuthi kube netintfo letibhaliwe ukuthi kubhekeke ukuthi bente ini bayende nabani bayende kuphi.
Umphathi wesifunda sakaManzini isikhulu Gitsha kanye nalo bekamelele litiko letemfundo kulo msebenzi lonyaka Dlamini akhuluma ngebumcoka bekusibandla labakhubateke ngekungaboni bangasaleli emuva.
Nasinganakana singabukulo to phesindvu kukhona lichaza langadlala lelingaphilisa nami mina lengakaphathi indvuku.
Sisementameni bokuthi singatkhanzi bokuthi St Joseph's solo wephele kakhulu dikhona naletinye tikolwa ku-accommodate abantwana bethu labangaboni.
Tinhlangano tebantu labakhubatekile kanye nemfundo yesikole se-St Joseph's baveta ngalokho lekumele uhulumende akulungise.
Uma lo mthetho webantu labakhubatekile angakafiki ku-full implementation live lethu liyawujinge bantu labakhubatekile kube kwangathi bendelwa kubele.
Kunetingcinamba lesisahlangana nato esikolweni. Tincwadzi akusito timpho lesinato. Tiyashoda loko kunika likhuni bothishela ukuthi basifundzise. Phindze nalama-gadget lenisendele wona ayafa bese asisakhoni kuchubeka sifundze.
Lonke lithuba lelikhona evele njengoba naye angumuntu unelungelo lokuthi naye abe khona. Namuhla ngalo mcimbi lo sitawenda kwekuthi kuko konke lesikwendayo we want to make a person with visual impairment activele ayingcenye yemango lesiphila kuwo.
Konke kukhulu besikubisile kwendekile. That unwavering support the commitment lenitshengisako chubekane and also promoting rights or inclusion of persons with visual impairment. Your leadership has ensured that visual impairment remains a national priority.
Bantu labakhubatekile kuleli balinganiselwa ngetulu 146,000 bese labakhubateke ngekungaboni emehlweni balinganiselwa ngetulu wa 46,000. Lobikako Fortune Dlangamandla ngisemzimpofu.
Indvuna yelitiko letekwatisa kuchumana netebuchwepheshe umhlonishwa Savannah Mazia seyethule ngalokusemtsetfweni libandla lebacondzisi belibandla lelengamele tekuchumana eveni i-Eswatini Communications Commission. Imvuna yethile libandla liyachubeka nekwenta imetamo lebonakalako etinhlangothini tekuchumana i-digital transformation kanye nekutsi kubete kusalela emuva kutebuchwephesha. Imvuna imemetele lelibandla emahhovisini alelitiko eMbabane.
Indvuna yelitiko letekwatisa kuchumana netebuchwephesha umhlonishwa Savannah Mazia wetfule lelibandla lebacondzisi labatawubhekeka kutsi babe sehhovisi iminyaka lengengci kulemithatfu. Indvuna itsile libandla lelengamele tekuchumana kuleli liyachubeka nekwenta umsebenti loncomekako ngesikhwama se-Universal Access and Service Fund njengoba likhonile kucinisekisa kutsi lonke liswati liyafinyelela kutebuchwephesha.
We are announcing officially the appointment of the new board of Eswatini Communications Commission, ESCOM, an institution that continues to drive digital transformation and inclusion across the country.
Indvuna itsi imisebenti lencomekako nalegcamile lebonakele kulelibandla ifaka ekhatsi indzawo yetebuchwephesha lesezingeni lelisetulu leyakhiwe ikolishi lengwane yebantfu labakhubatekile ingwane Teachers College Disability Resource Center leyetfulwe iNgwenyama kanye-ke nendzawo lesezingeni lelisetulu nayo i-UNESCO Content Studio nayo leyetfulwe ngemakhosi. Indvuna itsi letindzawo leti tiniketa litfuba bantfu labasha kutsi nabo kube khona sandla labasifakako emnotfweni welive kanye nakutemakhono. Indvuna itsi-ke lemetamo lena leyentiwa ngilelibandla ikhombisa-ke nemfutfo lelibandla leliwufakako kutsi kube bete losalela emuva kutebuchwephesha ekakhulu nalabo labasetindzaweni letisemakhaya. Sihlalo walelibandla Inathi Dlamini utfumise ligalelo indvuna lelifakile kuleti tebuchwephesha ngesikhashana nje lesincane.
What we need in order to transform our lot or circumstances in this country, economically and otherwise, we need an outlier, someone who thinks outside the box, someone who come in as very strange. But that's what it's gonna take for us to move from here to there.
Dlamini utsi uyaconza kutsi tingucuko letidzingekile letihambisana nemgomo welive kanye newelitiko tidzinga kutsi kube nekusebenta lokungakavami. Dlamini utsi-ke batawusebenzisana thutane nayo indvuna kutsi-ke ikhone kubasita lapho badzinge khona lusito. Labanye indvuna lebamemetele labakulelibandla bafaka ekhatsi Joseph Waring longcwala Mahlalela Ziyane, Mvila Wembi Dlamini longumphathi waka-ESCOM, Bheki Nzinisa kanye-ke nabongiwe Dlamini lomelele litiko. Kubika Sontomlangeni eMbabane.
Indvuna yelitiko letinkhundla umhlonishwa Sikhumbuzo Dlamini ithi kungumgomo walelitiko kuthuthukisa abomake labasemakhaya kute live lithuthuke enhlangothi tonkhana. Imvuna beyikhuluma ngesikhathi ukuphothula abomake benkhundla yasemotshane labafundzele emakhono ekutfunga ngaphansi kwehlelo lokuthuthukisa abomake ivukani bomake project.
Ukubhalanga lakamhlaba lebumcoka kwabomake labasemakhaya inhlangano yabosomabhizinisi lababomake ibambisene ne-Wilton Foundation iphothule bomake labalishumi benkundla yasemotshane labafundzele emakhono ekutfunga ngaphansi kwehlelo lokuthuthukisa bomake ivukani bomake project.
Ngiyaqala nje kucoka kanje ngifikela graduate khona ngibona sesineliphupho lelikhulu nanathi sesinefemu yethu enkundleni yasemotshane.
Ngiyalo sengiyathi ukuthi ticephu awudilahle everything nje uya recycle ukhiphela okunye ngeticephu tikotela everything nje like sengita khona kushintsha umndeni wami.
Nangisuka la ngiyozama ukuthi ngicashele abanye abantu bami senginalo lwazi ngicela ngibafundzise ngibacashe.
Indvuna yetiko letinkundla lebencinya lomsebenzi ithumise loluhlelo yathi imisebenzi lenjengalena imcoka ekuthuthukiseni luhlangothi letinkhundla.
Ngoba lonkweli yasinika inesibayeni awubese samthini isodwana bekadzinga vele ukuthi silayelwe ngoba semasiya sisimba senhulumende nathi singamboni kahle solo sisiyahlanganisa amaplani sabona ingwema iphuma ihamba iyangaphandle sabona ukuthi hayi funa siswende namaplani sibesisebenta.
Umphathi wenhlangano yabosomabhizinisi Inathi Dlamini uthi uma kunekubambisana kwabosomabhizinisi labadimele netinkhundla lelive lingasimama kutentfutfuko.
Sesibonile lokuthi le vision yakho nalama aspiration nalelive vela converge la tinkhundleni nebusiness. Sengibonile ukuthi yonke info la kaNgwane i-connected. Kepha nasingabe sesibambana letandla, singacwayanga, you will be shocked. I-development yala kaNgwane lengenteka.
Mengameli wenhlangano yabosomabhizinisi laba bomake Talkie How wethule imishina yokuthunga lemithafu esetawusetshenziswa ngilabo make labalishumi.
Ngekuthi misela kwabo ikhampani yaseFar East ibone ukuthi kukuhle sibabonge sibajabulise ukuthi bahambe baphethe imini factory.
Lilunga lephalamende lenkundla yaseMotshane umhlonishwa Wilton Kambule uthi ngalabo make seyithuthukile iMotshane seyikhona futhi nendzawo lesebaniketwe yona indlungulu ukuthi basebentele kuyo.
Lo msebenzi lona wenda siswele emagama ukuthi ngabe singathini kuwe. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi ukhicite labo somabhizinisi. Sibonge futhi make nanayi imishina losubabusise ngayo. Kunale bhena already seyilapho yenkampani lasebayifomishile.
Lo hlelo lavukani bomake ludunyiswe kakhulu ngekubandakanya tonke tinhlangothi kakhulukazi labo labakhubatekile nabo labatfola kucijwa ngamakhono ekuthunga kude bakhone ukutiphilisa. Lobikako nguSamkelisiwe Khoza kuMathapha.
Litiko letempilo lithi selincume ukuthi litawuhugcisa ema-order emithi nemaphilisi kubosomabhizinisi labathengisela uhulumende emaphilisi lokuphela tinyanga letimbili bangakayethuli imithi nemaphilisi lokuvunyelwene ngayo. Lokuvetwe ngulobuke kuthenga impahla itiko letempilo ngesikhathi litiko letempilo livele embiko lekomiti lelibuke kusebenza kwemali yembuso ePhalamende ngalesithathu.
Ikomiti lelibuke kusebenta kwemali yembuso ePhalamende ngalesithathu lichubekene kudzingidza tindzaba tekungasebenzi kahle kwemali. Itiko letempilo lisekela lemcwaningi mabhuku kahulumende samukele motha wetfulela lelikomiti lehloniphekile ukuthi kuyachubeka kuyavela basacwaninga wona emabhuku elitiko letempilo ukuthi kunalabathengisela uhulumende imithi nemaphilisi lokuphela umnyaka netinyanga solo bangawetfuli lawo maphilisi lokuvunyelwene ngawo.
Sibone ama-delays ku-deliver kwesitoko kulama suppliers. Sikhanze ukuthi kuyendeka ukuthi kuphele bo 7 months 10 months kulesinye isikhathi kuphele even 17 months isikhathi lesithe kakhulu so lebangakhona ukuthi ba deliver kanti kule divumelwano dalo litiko nabo kusuke kubekwe ngalokusobala lokuthi kubekekele ukuthi ku deliver ngesikhathi lesinganani.
Emalunga lelikomiti atsingitsele indzaba kabanti.
If you look at the auditor general in March 2025 lama items that's wakhanza kude emashelfini so
le list nje lengaka le lesinete yona auditor general hayi sesigcwalisile naku kube sinale list le ukuthi
asifiki la sigculiseka khona ukuthi finally leave noma abantu batawusitakala nawuva lokukhala lokungaka probably khona abantu abasukumako bende something letawenda umehluko kuze ukuthi lokukhala nalokufa mhlawumbe kwehle.
Leyo supplier loyo longakadeliver uye bese uyamukwa lelo order le bese uyakhanseliswa vele akasanikethe kodwa ke lengakakuthanzi kahle ukuthi base bathi sewutawuphinza athole lo uyophinza athole lelinye li-order.
Ngabe le position ya legal iholelelana letiko laka MOH ngoma umsebenzi wakhe kugatsa tinto tema contracts nemuntu losaphule lokungumthetho lebekuboshiwe noma lokusayinwe phasi.
Itiko letempilo ke letfulile lelikomiti lehloniphekile timphendvulo.
The supplier base yethu vele it's an issue but we have engaged the suppliers but meeting with them they were full. Fortunately sesiva kusifusisa bakhe sebakhona sibethe banzawo.
The new contract sihlalo sister ukhansela nakehluleka at 60 days. This is a measure that sisifuna kungaphinzeki lesimo lesi.
In the past office la legal mhlambe belisalele emuva when it comes to kwenziwa kwalama contract ngalokumanage kwawo. So thina sisebenze ngalama instructions.
Lelikomiti ke lichubekela phathisa itiko letempilo ukuthi lisebenzisana letinye tinhlangothi takhe uhulumende kucinisekisa ukuthi indzaba yekushoda kwemithi nemaphilisi etibhedlela deliver kuyaphela. Lobikako nguSamkelisiwe Khoza ePhalamende.
Nakutemidlalo inkampani yakwa-Bycash seyihlabe ngesigodlwana iPigs Peak League ngemali elinganiselwa ku-130,000 emalangeni ngekusho komhlonishwa Jabulani Mabuza umcondzisi wale nkampani. Lena ngulenye yetindlela dabo bayinkampani yokubuyisela sandla esiveni kanye nekwelekelela ekuthuthukiseni lizinga lemidlalo yebhola eveni.
Umcondzisi weBycash Adwele uphindze abe lilunga lephalamende esibhiki umhlonishwa Jabulani Mabuza uthi kusemgomeni wabo bayinkampani kubuyisela khona esiveni kanti-ke lolu hlelo basitawuchubeka nalo naseminyakeni lelandzelako njengoba batibekela ukuthi lokunganga-20% kuyo inzuzo yenkampani batawubuyisela kuso sive.
So-ke siye sibe sesithi-ke part of what uNkulunkulu lasiphe kona asikuyi-investe back to the people. Today-ke sithula imali lengu-50,000 lo 50,000 ke ngwale league yenu ukuthi nimdlalele ngalendlela lenidlala ngayo. On top of that bese siyothenga amajezi le in terms of value sakhipha imali leng-80,000. Inkampani yakwa-Bycash isponsorishe lo msebenzi wombili njengoba sengubalile nga-130,000 total. Ngomkhuba lesitawuchubeka siwende loyo hayi ngoba siwenda ngoba sicela emavoti kini but siwenda ngoba kuyingcenye yempilo yethu ukuthi sikwende.
Sihlalo wenhlangano edlalisa libhola kawo Dr. Comfort Jonge ukutsata bona abadlali ukuthi basebenzise amathuba labekiwe ekutithuthukiseni ngelwati lwalo mdlalo.
Siyifunze lento lesiyendako. Sitobona ukuthi the modern trends athini inyalo singabambi kulokudzala kanti sekukhona lokusha lokwendiwayo. So let us do that. Sifunze sithabele lebhola ukuthi idlalwa njani vele.
Thamishonge wendlulise emave kubonga egameni lenhlangano edlalisa libhola khona esibheki.
Dineng timvo latendela abantu labasha akagcine ebholeni. Siyathi nje ukuthi uhle asibita sibantu labasha asithengisela imicondvo yokuthi singatithuthukisa njani ngetemabhizinisi singatiphilisa njani. Lema ideas noma ngaba nawo yena ukuthi mawufuna ukutiphilisa kumele wendeni. Angeke aze amaterialize if thina sihleli nje singendi lutho.
Baphathi bemacembu-ke bathi batawucikelela ukuthi kubade kuthikabeteka lokuba khona kusachubeka lemidlalo.
Sicela nje i-respect from the directors ukuze nasponsor umsebenzi wakhe bese sohamba kahle because angeke kube kahle ukhanze ukuthi sesiyaphikisana nanasi la sesona lento lomdzala. Sitawubonga nje kafishane siyabonga kakhulu sithembise ukuthi sitatiphatha kahle as teams.
Ngubika Thabiso Mapanga ehotela le-Highlands Inn esibheki.
Sitawuta phethalana ngolumhleti indzaba futhi ecala lisuku ngelimi leSiswati sitawuta salikhefu nasibuya luhlelo liyachubeka.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokhu kusendlini.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Imagine being part of a journey that uncovers the beauty of untold stories. Get ready to be part of something epic. You don't want to be left out, and you definitely don't want to miss out. Join the journey of uncovering untold stories through art, words, and hands. O-U-T out. Well, that's poetry. Poetry. Don't blink or you'll miss it. Every Monday, 6:30 p.m. Screens on, eyes glued.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Welcome back to the program. It's 39 minutes after 6. The King Mswati III has always or too often reminded us that Eswatini's future will not be defined by promises, by aspirations, but by the work that it puts in reality. And indeed, this week, that is exactly what we have been experiencing in the Kingdom of Eswatini. 2 sides, 2 budgets, and 1 nation holding its breath. We saw His Majesty King Mswati III, of course, reminding us that Eswatini's future will not be defined by our aspirations, by the projects that we are building and that we are bold enough to build. And we saw that happening this week with convictions. These 2 sites that we are talking about at Mbageni, His Majesty stood where families have moved, land shifted, and a promise that has been made that compensation must translate into long-term uplift. And before the dust could settle, he was in the Royal Eswatini Jozini, where here 200 million Malageni already has been committed, and private investors at the table, wildlife being reintroduced, and the rhetoric of jobs, of tourism and water access extending beyond Lavumisa. The king is marking the sites where the country's next economic chapter is supposed to be written. And that is the conversation this morning, where we want to look at both terrains and, of course, different instruments, but a single signal from the throne, clear development bets. Economist Sanele Sibia is with me, and I want us to hold this moment properly in its context with economic precision, Mr. Sibia. And I suppose the first question is just, appreciating these two developments and the economic transformation they hold for the Kingdom of Eswatini.
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo, and good morning to the viewer. So what we're looking into here, number one, is Eswatini really is gearing up and maintaining that momentum within that mega project landscape, which also seeks to transform the landscape and the economy. So if you speak of the Mbakeni Dam and you look at the augmentations there, and also the transformation towards high-value crop production. So what you're in instance doing there is you're taking land that was lying fallow, that was not being used before by families, and you're giving them this income-generating capacity. And I mean, you've seen the success stories with Eswatini 1 and Eswatini 2. So we're just simply replicating that project, putting money into the pockets of Emaswati and, taking the learnings from Eswatini and Eswatini 2 and Lusip 2, from Lusip 1 and 2, and then you're cultivating them into this project where you make sure that not only are you chasing food security, not only are you chasing income generation, but also chasing food security as well.
And those are, you look at the most pressing challenges in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Food sovereignty, food security is the biggest conversation right now. We have been experiencing some of the international trips, some in the United Nations General Assembly articulated by His Majesty King Mswati III, and recently His Excellency Russell Lamini, the Prime Minister, also speaking on what we want to do in our agriculture sector. Of course, again, he was representing His Majesty the King there. But, do you see inclusive development here emerging really? Because there could be the idea of financing growth at the expense of the same communities that are in those areas.
Starting with, the Mbakeni Dam project. So that one just basically speaks inclusive growth. Because if you look at the model there, starting from Lusip 1, Lusip 2, up to where we are right now at that dam project, it's an issue where you take the land from Emaswati, who basically in most cases would lie fallow, and then you help them form companies, and then they develop those companies. We've had those learnings from Lusip 1 and Lusip 2 in terms of how do we make sure that the gender dynamics within the household do not affect who gets to benefit from this project. So there is always that recalibration from one phase to the next to ensure that you look at the household dynamics and ensure that the shares don't only just go to one sector. And then when you come into the Josine project, I mean, that's one that's been long time in the making. And what is actually impressive about it is it is private sector led. Right?
Yes.
So it is not government pumping in the money there, but private sector taking the lead and reintroducing conservativeness, natural conservation into that landscape. So that in itself speaks sustainable and inclusive growth and development. And I mean, it's also going to bring those job opportunities for the locals and in a way regreening the entire of Lavumisa. And I think we could also be looking at a bit of a resurgence in, irrigation. If you remember Lavumisa, that entire belt was a very big cotton production belt until the drought years. So now, right now, augmenting that water source, I think it's going to have those trickle-down effects, and we might see, cotton coming back there, and we see the cotton ginnery coming back into profitability as it once was.
The conversation around the word relocation. Relocation is the polite word. What makes the difference between people being compensated and people being displaced with paperwork?
All right. So when you are talking relocation, What you're saying is, in essence, you are giving way to a development project from which you will benefit as well. And, in economics, when we make policy, we tend to say there is something we call the Hicks compensation principle, that if we move you and still the benefits to the entirety of society outweigh the cost of moving you, then we judge that project as being quite successful. But here, when you think of what is happening, is we are not necessarily relocating you, we are resettling you. So there's a huge difference there. We're saying let homes move that side so that we open up this land for agricultural production, which is very much what ought to happen. And there has always been a resettlement policy in this country and just has never been implemented properly.
It's quite interesting because another big conversation is around the 700 people that have moved from Mbageni. Contractors there will eventually leave, and the question that remains is what then determines whether this becomes a livelihood engine or just a construction milestone, because that's really serious.
Yeah, that's quite potent, because it's one of the things we've been worried about, to say what happens when construction ends. Are we going to see the economic benefits that we are hoping to see coming out of this project? And I think we are in good hands. We've had LUCIP 1, LUCIP 2, and now we are here. And what we are looking at doing, if you recall from LUCIP 2, it was more an issue of we're moving away from sugar because that market was getting saturated. Let's find other high-value crops, those crops like your baby vegetables that are actually going to fetch a high price in the global market. And then when you also look at what the government is doing in tandem, in parallel rather, to what is happening right now, the government is actually building those cold storages in Skupe and near the train terminals there, because we want to be able to ensure that when we send these highly perishable commodities, they are actually going into a market and they'll get there safely so that their communities benefit there.
And of course, we've been told that water will power agriculture, and that speaks to Mbageni, and tourism will power job creation, a lot of it. In practice, who feels it first? And the investor, there's the state, there's the households that are nearest the fence. Who feels it immediately?
So on the agricultural side, what you see is the households are going to feel it first. That is after construction. But right now, the contractors are the ones smiling all the way. After which, we do expect that to trickle to households. But what we need to be cognizant of right now is how do we make sure that households begin to benefit very fast, because we know there is an entire financing model there that says we are not only just going to give you a farm, but you have to pay for it. Now, we need to learn to manage the costs there and ensure that those farms are run efficiently.
But can we categorize filling it? Can we categorize it under filling it first, that when the contractors are doing their job, they are hiring some of the people within the community? I mean, not the largest percentage of the populace there, but I suppose they form part of the cohort that are filling it.
Yeah, now that's definitely filling it in terms of the employment. But I mean, we have to think long-term.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. But in terms of those immediate jobs there, we do know that this has done quite a lot towards alleviating that situation. And I think just last week we saw the government coming out to declare that they actually have already created approximately 3,000 jobs right now. So that means that's 3,000 incomes going into households, and we do hope that quite a majority of what's happening there goes directly to the community.
Yeah.
And then when you come to the Eswatini Brick 6 project, again, there's going to be employment. And what I like about that one, I mean, when I listened to His Majesty last night, where he was just naming quite a number of wildlife that's no longer there. So there is that intrinsic benefit to it. We call it an intrinsic benefit. You may not necessarily see the money, but people just enjoy looking at those. I mean, just where I live, there is this water pond, and in summer it does attract a makwala-kwala. They're quite a marvel to behold, I must say. So there are those things, and making sure that we are sustainable in our development. So we are reintroducing like wildlife that had been long gone.
And certainly that attracts a certain cohort of tourists who want to enjoy that kind of scenery, that kind of view, really. 200 million has gone into Eswatini, a significant amount of money. And investor confidence is one thing, of course, and you like to speak about that. But what stops the money circulating among the usual economic aristocracy?
So what we are looking into, the number one, we have to think of the multiplier, right? And when all is said and done, every other private entity, we usually say in economics, the very first words that were uttered in the very first book in economics in 1886 was like, it is not from the benevolence of the dictator that we get our money, from the benevolence of the butcher that we get our lunch, nor from the good heart of the brewer that we get our drinks, but it is out of their pursuit of their own. Of their own interest. So we cannot run away from the fact that people are pumping in 200 million there to benefit from that. But what we need to do, as we've always said in this country, we need to redistribute the economy so that the money doesn't stay with what you would call the economic aristocracy, where you tax them very hard and then you take that money, you invest in economic development programs.
Yeah, and indeed the argument there has always been people have invested that money, and so they want to rip from their investment. I think that's the same conversation for the oligarchy in the United States, for Donald Trump, for Elon Musk, but certain
they get taxed up to 50%.
100%.
Because that's what you do to the ultra-rich. You tax them, because anyways they're not going to feel it. They have a way of playing around with their taxes. So what they eventually declare as a profit is not necessarily profit. There is money that they have ways of moving around and it still evades the tax. It's not evasion, it's just smart accounting.
Interesting indeed. And now we have two development models that are in motion here. Communal relocation under trust land versus leased conservation land for private capital. Which one gives people equity, not scenery?
In terms of equity that you would expect within private development, but within that leased type of setup, it's an issue of you can't even transfer that farm. It doesn't have a title with which you can transfer, which is one of the problems that we see inherent within Africa, in the sense that we have a lot of this communal land and it doesn't really carry much economic value in terms of saying, if I'm failing to operate this farm, can I transfer it to somebody else so that it gets the highest productive value?
The king has said emphatically that those that have moved at Mbageni must benefit, must be cushioned, must be insulated. They must feel not a pinch from everything that has happened there. From a policy standpoint, what proof points must stand that would indicate that this indeed is not only a ceremonial promise?
So the way I know it through the Eswatini programs, basically, it's not like you're moving people for a road and then you're going to build their houses again. But what in essence you are doing is you are moving people so that you can bring this economic empowerment initiative. So that one, usually the people that have been moved, the reason we move you, number one, is we want to construct them. Then number two, we are going to take land and still give those people, and they're going to form what we call farmer companies. And I heard His Majesty again commanding that he wants very much successful farmer companies where you've taken at least what who's never had a stake in a company, and now all of a sudden they have a farmer company and they have a stake and they have ways of distributing those shares within there. So it would be quite a miscalculation if those that have been moved for the dam construction itself are not part of that entire scheme. So you have to structure it in a way that those that are moving are not only just moving, because what you then are going to see is also there is going to be movement, slow stream of people to make way for these farmer companies. So all of those people that give up their land, that's more like my contribution to this project, so that I'll then become part of a farmer company.
Eswatini is going to attract tourists. It is also going to attract conferences. We're enjoying some of the visuals during our news segment there. The construction, you can see that there's intention, there's intent. They're very intentional with the way that they've built it in terms of, tourism, conferences, but also the wildlife. You mentioned some of the animals that His Majesty was speaking about that will occupy that space. Does that translate into ownership or just employment at the periphery?
Because that's private land, so you will not see much ownership except for the investors of that capital there who then bought that land. But we do expect the economy around to start booming because you're going to create those jobs. And also we do expect to see the Tanzogo town there and Big Bend also developing, because there's going to be new traffic that is going to be created by, either the tourists or the conferences or just visitors. And one of the things that I think APA has noticed right now is, tourism is one of those low-hanging fruits for the kingdom. And also, people when they travel, they're not only just here to see the big five, but they will also look at business opportunities. I mean, if you go to China today, you will see where you can stock the cheapest iPhones and bring them into the kingdom. And then same thing with the tourists that are in the kingdom. They will see opportunities to say, no, if I can invest in that in Eswatini. So we need to ensure that we continue combining those two avenues.
Spia, we often hear about secondary benefits. That is roads, that is SMEs, that is supply chains, right? What is the real separator? What is the litmus test here for real economic spillover, which separates it from broader language?
Okay. To just make it clear for you or for the viewer is, just go to Spofanin and see what's happening now. That town has really developed.
That is economic spillover.
Yeah, that's an economic spillover. When Lusip 1 was being envisaged, we never thought of the town and whatnot. But all of a sudden, the people have money now, so you need that money to start circulating somewhere, and then you're seeing the services sector boom as well. So that's why I'm saying, in the next 10 to 15 years, I expect Nzogo to develop into an even, bigger town in that Mr. Matata complex. That we do expect to see those developments. Those are the economic spillovers, because when you then look into that economy, you will find someone selling clothes, someone selling cell phones, someone fixing cell phones, someone doing something, the restaurants, those are ShopRites, those anchor shops. So those are the economic spillovers where you see SMEs coming up to now fill in the service gap, because now the people have spending power, and that purchasing power must then be localized. And I think we do expect to see that happening as well.
If government asked one lever from you to ensure that both these projects really deliver public value and not investor value, what would you pull?
I would actually just say, let us learn from the previous projects and ensure that in as much as we are going commercial, but we make sure that people are still able to subsist and there is water now there. Let us ensure that people are still able to subsist, not just to have to wait until we've sold and then we share the capital at the end of the year.
And the perfect case study for you there would be the one that you've just referred to.
Exactly.
Let's just pop on and stepping back. Does this week for you suggest a pivot in how Eswatini's economic transformation in terms of using land, in terms of using water and wildlife for development, or are we perfecting old habits with better optics? What do you say here?
I would say, number one, you replicate a success story, so I wouldn't call it an old habit. Elusive has worked, and we've seen people from the region come into Eswatini to basically look at that. So what we are in essence doing is we are replicating while at the same time we are learning. And we are now structuring these packages such that you are developing a broader sector in those spillover effects, and you are bringing in the tourists. I mean, imagine right now, you have also, in a way, when I was thinking about Josine, I asked myself, how are we going to control the waters? You've actually improved connectivity between South Africa and Eswatini, because right now I'm thinking, what's to stop you from just driving on your boat and moving to the other side. So we are seeing those benefits. Now that's quite a huge benefit, because when you look at the people there, they used to climb that mountain. So now I think with Royal Jozini, when they go to school, you do expect to see those, programs like schools being built so that our children don't necessarily have to go across the border there, that mountain. So now what that brings is localized development, Numalo, and usually the Eswatini model comes with all those services around. So we do expect that there is going to be a school.
Sonny, thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. One thing is clear from what you're saying is that even with economists, sometimes they are skeptical with some of the projects. And he said he's had his own questions before, and he's been proven wrong by, how these projects then eventuate. And loko kusiniketa leyo opportunity ukuthi sichubeke nekwekhuta lwandle, because again, as we started this conversation, we premised it by saying that His Majesty King Mswati III has always and too often reminded us that our aspirations are not really defined by the promises, but by the bold steps that we then take to make them come into reality. And therefore, this week, we've enjoyed with conviction and through his presence, His Majesty King Mswati III at Mbageni and at Royal Jozini. We're just waiting for the people to enjoy those benefits, which they will. Let's go for a break. We'll be back shortly.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Kusile Breakfast Show. This is the Thursday edition, our English news now. His Majesty King Mswati III says the Kingdom of Eswatini has to make it a mission that the tourism sector is developed so that the sector contributes to the development of the country's economy and also creates job opportunities. His Majesty was speaking during the visit of the construction site of the 7th on the Hill Hotel at Kaqomindaba, and also during the visit of the Royal Jozini Game Reserve in Lavomisa.
The King and Ngwenyama arrived at the 7th on the Hill facility at Kaqomindaba in the Shiselweni region and was welcomed and received by the management and board of the facility. Present during His Majesty's visit were Makhosikati to His Majesty, the royal family, cabinet ministers, chiefs and members of the Royal Council. The chairperson of the project is Nowanyawo, Chief Executive Officer is Lucius Makakula, and also included in the construction of the hotel is Prince Majaha, Dumagute and Nyawo Ndlovu. His Majesty King Mswati III has made it a mission and declared tourism as one of the pillars of Eswatini's future and has a potential to become the largest driver of the nation's economy. Tourism is also expected to create employment opportunities to improve livelihoods. Addressing the gathering, His Majesty King Mswati III said it is very crucial that the Kingdom of Eswatini is able to attract a lot of visitors into the country.
Ukhanga tivakashi eveni tide la titokwati kwekuthi tithi natifikile lapha tikhanze ma facilities la ngeyo kahle hle letitawkwati kwekuthi tithi nase tihleli tihlale kahle ngoba live lakithi leSwatini sifuna ukuthi likhange tivakashi tibe tinyendi nangihamba umhlaba uyukhanze ukuthi bakhuluma ngekuthi tivakashi emhlabeni ti noma kulelo live ukhanze ukuthi babala ukuthi labafika ngeminyaka babalele kubo 100 million webantu ubone ke lamanye mave akhuluma ngabo 36 million ngelanga ukuthi kwenqa nje kulelo live kukhulunywa nga 36 million buke ukuthi nangabe sebantu bafike evene bang 100 million labo bantu labo noma bangaspenda 1 cent amunye kungiko ke kumgcoka lo ukuthi sikwakhe lo msebenzi letawukhona kukhanga tivakashi njoba kubukwe live lonke ukuthi ichithisaka njoba na lapha eshiselweni nje kubukwa nangakhona ukuthi kutosetshenzwa kubonakale kuhle nasikhanza njoba nani bayasho lapha njoba ningu 150 nine lesenisebenza lapha lekubonalisa ukuthi loyo 150 naye kungemehluko lomkhulu lo ukuthi athole la tawuvukela khona ngoba kuvukela sekwaba impilo yemhlaba.
About 150 of Eswatini have been employed currently, and the number is expected to increase as it is to develop to other phases, of which during the address His Majesty disclosed that it is the country's mandate to ensure job creation in the kingdom. The ongoing project is expected to cost a total sum of 1 billion emalangeni and is expected to complete in 3 phases as it is currently on phase 1. The first phase will have a 5-star hotel, a restaurant, administration block, and as well as stalls for handicraft display. As the project is underway, 14 farm dwellers have been relocated as 14 houses have been built for them, and they are expected to move in there by the end of the month. First phase of the project has costed above 200 million emalangeni, second phase to cost about 300 million, while third to cost about 500 million emalangeni. In completion, the project will have developed residential plots, shopping complex, recreational facility, school from grade R to Form 5, and a university that will specialize on fields such as engineering and health. His Majesty planted a tree which will remain as proof that His Majesty has indeed visited the place. The King and Ingwenyama has also visited the Royal Eswatini Game Reserve. Upon arrival at the Game Reserve, His Majesty was welcomed by the management of the facility. Chiefs and members of the local communities came out in numbers to feel the warmth of the presence of His Majesty. His Majesty has several times stressed that tourism development must bring tangible benefits to community members and as well as citizens of the country. The place is situated in Lavumisa in the Kusile region, and it has a dam that benefits local residents and the people from Pongola in the Republic of South Africa. Speaking during the visit, His Majesty King Mswati III presented the project to local communities and further encouraged community members to guard the project and ensure that the future generation finds it in a right state.
Tumisa ke ukuthi ke wonke lemsebenzi inetha nemathuba khona lapha esiveni nakulendzawo ukuthi sibe nemathuba ukuthi sisebente titokhula letindzawo tibe nelikusasa lelihle kwendele ukuthi ke kube kuyendi nalokwa lesitawukwenda kube ingcenye yawo lo msebenzi njengoba silapha nje eJosini game park nakhona kubonakala ukuthi singetetela kule msebenzi leseyivele isetshenzwa ebekunene. sengaba ngiko kubusisa nawo lo msebenzi walapha uthi nawo ovele ubusisiwe senawo nakelela kahle bekunene siyabonga uNkulunkulu uyawusibusisa sonke bekunene.
Speaking during the visit, His Majesty King Mswati III presented the project to local communities and further encouraged community members to guard the project and ensure that the future generation finds it in a right state. His Majesty also applauded the game reserve for the plans and programs of developing the facility in future. Royal Chozini was established in 2006 by a group of investors who share a passion for conservation, wildlife, and the beauty of majestic land in Eswatini. On the news, I'm Polile Mazia with Tabiso Dlamini in Lavomisa.
The Minister of Information, Communications and Technology, Honorable Savannah Mazia, has announced the new Board of Directors for the Eswatini Communications Commission. And speaking at the ministry's offices, the minister says ESCOM continues to play a pivotal role in driving digital transformation as well as in promoting digital inclusion across the kingdom.
Information, Communications and Technology Honorable Savannah Mazia has announced the new Board of Directors for the Eswatini Communications Commission ESCOM. The board members are expected to serve for a period not exceeding 3 years. Minister Mazia commends ESCOM for the remarkable work it continues to do in advancing digital transformation and inclusion in Eswatini. The minister expressed confidence that the new board will build on these achievements and drive the organization's mandate forward.
We are announcing officially the appointment of the new board of Eswatini Communications Commission, ESCOM, an institution that continues to drive digital transformation and inclusion across the country. Through the Universal Access and Service Fund, ESCOM has delivered transformative programs that ensure equitable access to ICT. Two recent initiatives that stand out as strong examples of their great work is the Ngwane Teachers College Disability Resource Center, which was officially commissioned by His Majesty the King. A fully equipped ICT-enabled classroom supporting students with disabilities, ensuring inclusive digital learning, as well as the UNESCO Content Studio, which has also officially launched by Their Majesties, a state-of-the-art digital production facility that empowers students to participate in the digital economy through innovation and content creation. These initiatives, amongst many, reflect ESCOM's commitment to bridging the digital divide and expanding access to underserved citizens, institutions, and communities.
The chairperson of the board, Inati Dlamini, says they will seek the minister's guidance to effectively deliver on the commission's mandate.
What we need in order to transform our lot or circumstances in this country, economically and otherwise, is we need an outlier, someone who thinks outside the box, someone who comes in as very strange. But that's what it's going to take for us to move from here to there. And we humbly avail ourselves to your leadership and to your vision going forward. We can assure you and promise you that ours is to be true to the calling that we have assigned us to perform. When we are lost or we find ourselves in a foggy situation like it is foggy outside, then we cannot see our way forward. We will always call upon you, and I'm sure you will always avail yourself for advice going forward. I, as chairman, look forward to interacting meaningfully with the team just to ensure that we are aligned, firstly, to the vision of this ministry going forward.
The newly appointed members are Joseph Waring, Longwala Mahlalela Ziane, and they will serve alongside existing members Mvilawembi Dlamini, ESCOM CEO, Bheki Nzinisa representing the Minister of Finance, and Bongiwe Dlamini representing the Minister of ICT. Reporting Sondomlangeni Mbabane.
The government of Eswatini says it is committed to ensuring that persons with visual impairments live in conditions that allow them to enjoy a good quality of life like every other person. This was said by the Deputy Prime Minister's Office's Principal Secretary, Makosi Simelane. He was representing the Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Kusile during the commemoration of the annual International White Cane Day. This day is celebrated for persons with visual impairments, and the event was held at St. Joseph's and is held under the theme Clear the Way, enabling an inclusive environment for persons with visual impairment in Eswatini.
We look back at the journey as a country that we have walked with people with disabilities, particularly visually impaired people. We then also look at the challenges that they face. We also look ahead at the things that we still need to do for them as a government. So to ensure that they are included in our programs and also to ensure that all the issues that they raise as concerns, and also to urge the public and so many other people that play a role in this space to do their part, because clearly the issues that surround people with disabilities, particularly the visually impaired today, requires an all-of-society approach.
The Mazin Regional Administrator Chief Kicha, together with the representative from the Ministry of Education, Nonyaka Dlamini, speak about the importance of ensuring that persons with visual impairments are not left behind. He says Emaswati must take care of each other, regardless of whether one is visually impaired, adding that everyone can benefit from someone who is visually impaired, despite their condition. She says that it is encouraging to note that other schools in the country have also started accepting visually impaired pupils, unlike in the past when it was only St. Joseph's School. Organization for Persons with Disabilities, along with Lena from St. Joseph's School, highlight what they expect the government to improve. They say they appreciate the efforts made by government to improve the lives of visually impaired persons, but note that challenges remain. They add that the National Disability Act should be fully implemented to improve the lives of visually impaired persons. In schools, they say there is not enough educational material as assistive devices are broken and have not been repaired. They emphasize that visually impaired persons should be included in all aspects of the society.
That unwavering support system, the commitment, and also promoting rights or inclusion of persons with in visual impairment. Your leadership has ensured that visual impairment remains a national priority.
The total number of persons with disabilities in the country is estimated at over 146,000, with persons with visual impairment estimated over 46,000. Reporting Fortune Dlangamandla, Mzimpomfu.
The Minister of Tinkhundla, Sikhumbuzo Dlamini, says developing all sectors of rural society remains a key mandate of the ministry. The Honourable Minister was speaking during a graduation session of 10 women from Mochane who have graduated with sewing skills under the Vukani Bomage project.
In commemoration of the International Day of Rural Women, 10 women have graduated with sewing skills through the Vukani Bomage project. This initiative is a collaboration between businesswomen Eswatini and the Wilton Foundation.
Ngiyaqala nje kuqoka kanje ngifikela graduate khona ngibona sesineliphupho lelikhulu nanathi sesinefemi yethu enkundleni yaseMotshane.
Nyalo sengiyathi ukuthi icephu awudilahle everything nje uya recycle ukhiphela okunye ngeticephu tikotela everything nje like sengita khona kushintsha umndeni wami.
Nangisuka la ngiyozama ukuthi ngicashele abanye abantu bami senginalo lwazi ngicela ngibafundzise ngibacashe.
The Honourable Minister of Tinkhundla Administration and Development, Sikhumbuzo Dlamini, says empowering rural women remains a key mandate of the ministry.
He says
it is indeed the mandate of the ministry to develop all sectors of rural society. He says projects like this align with the vision of the Ministry of Inclusive Community Development. Whereas Business Eswatini CEO Inati Dlamini emphasized the importance of collaboration between the private and the public sectors in driving community development.
le vision yakho nalama aspirational live vela converge la tinkundleni nebusiness. Kepha nasi ngabe sesibambana letandla singaxwayanga, you will be shocked. I-development yala kangwanele ngentela.
Adding to their joy, businesswomen Eswatini chairperson Toki Howe lifted the graduate spirits by donating 3 factory sewing machines.
Ikhampani yaseFar East ibone ukuthi kukuhle sibabonge sibajabulise ukuthi bahambe baphethe mini factory.
Mushane Member of Parliament Wilton Kambule applauded the initiative, saying it represents progress and opportunity for his constituency.
Sibonga kakhulu kuthi ukhicite labo somabhizinisi. Sibonge futhi make nanayi imishini alosubabusise ngayo. Kunale bhena already seyilapho yenkampani lasebayifomishile.
The Vuganibo Mage project was uploaded for promoting self-employment amongst the vulnerable groups and economic growth within Eswatini's rural communities. Reporting Samgalsiwe Koza, Matapa.
The Ministry of Health says it has decided to cancel orders with suppliers who fail to deliver within 2 months. This is part of government's efforts to tighten procurement and improve the timely availability of medicines. This was said during a Public Accounts Committee session with the Ministry of Health.
The Public Accounts Committee sat once again on Wednesday as it continued with its session with the Minister of Health. During the session, Assistant Auditor General Samgele Mota informed the Honorable Committee that some medicine suppliers delayed deliveries for a period exceeding a year.
Sibone delays could deliver stock of lama suppliers. Sikhanze ukuthi kuyendeka ukuthi kuphele bo 7 months, 10 months, kulesinye isikhathi kuphele even 17 months.
In a debate, committee members expressed concern that such delays negatively impact service delivery in health facilities across the country.
If you look at the Auditor General, in March 2025, the items that's wakanza kude mashelfini so
le list nje lengaka le lesinede wena Auditor General hayi sesigcwalisile naku
sasifike la sigculiseka khona ukuthi finally leave noma abantu batawusitakala nawuva lokukhala lokungaka probably khona abantu abasukumako bende something letawenda umehluko kuze ukuthi lokukhala nalokufa mhlawumbe kwehle
leyo supplier loyo longakadeliver uye bese uyamukwa lelo order le bese uyacanceliswa vele akasanikethe kodwa ke lengakakuthanzi kahle ukuthi base bathi sewutawuphinza athole lo uyophinza athole lelinye li-order
ngabe le position ya legal iholelelana letiwo laka MOH.
The Minister of Health, led by the PS Kanyamabuza, gave responses.
The supplier base yet it's an issue, but we have engaged the suppliers, but meeting with them, they were full. Fortunately,
the new contract is flalo. Sister cancela. Nagehluleka at 60 days. This is a measure that is successful now. Kungaphinzeki lesimo lesi.
In the past, the office legal mhlambe belisalele emuva when it comes to when you are kwalama contract ngaloku manage kwawo. So thina sisebenze ngalama instructions.
The Honorable Committee pleaded with the Minister of Health to seek support from other government sectors to resolve the issue of medicines shortage. Reporting Samgalsiwe Koza, Parliament.
The Honourable Speaker of the House of Assembly, Jabulani Mabuza, says members of the Parliament are protected under the Privileges Act and other tools. Therefore, they should debate freely without fear or intimidation from any harm or any arm of government. The Honourable Speaker was speaking in Parliament on Wednesday.
Before getting to the day's business, members of Parliament on Wednesday invoked Standing Order 66, seeking clarity from the Honourable Speaker of the House, Jabulani Mabuza, on the Parliament powers when the arms of government question issues debated in the House. This follows recent developments involving Winnie Member of Parliament Alec Lushaba and the judiciary. In response, the Honourable Speaker, together with his deputy Madala Mhlanga, assured members that Parliament is protected under the Privileges Act and other legal instruments. They emphasized that MPs should continue to debate matters freely without fear or intimidation from any arm of government. On another note, members of parliament again invoked Standing Order 66, soughting clarity from the Speaker again, raising concerns about the absence of cabinet members on the day.
Indlu itanga ukuthi kunebusiness executive. Mana ngibona ngisho namunye namhla executive bese kuhamba kanjani nabo kanje.
Nase ke singawa executive sekuhle shona yinye la. Ngabe speaker utabese wenda njani speaker because nayitolo sike sachaza samcela umcondzisi sathi umcondzisi sicela ukuthi sibotela ibhizinisi lo watiko lokuthi bakhona labatayiphendula.
Nase ifikile lena seyiphumile order paper bese abasaba khona. Kwendiwa njani abe mhlambe kune event lesathi osivele batayo bakhona khona. The
Honorable Speaker responded.
It is not correct with babe absent parliament, just like all of us. But now it is wrong. Le business yethu lesingayo namuhla la bahlonishwa lo mnengo walomsebenzi ungani vele ungabo chairperson bema portfolio committees because sibuya kuma debate so lama report abo chairperson so akusho ke ukuthi nangabe nikhona nini bese nithi ngoba akukho minister kusho ukuthi ayikho iparliament nichaza ukuthi labo minister bamgcoka kunani. That's not true. That's not true. We are here as parliament and we must continue with our work and do our work ngendlela lefanele. Otherwise,
with that, the House proceeded with the orders of the day, and the chairperson of portfolio committees tabled reports on the debate of second quarter performances, followed by the adjournment of the House on Wednesday. Reporting Samgalsiwe Koza, Themba Shabangu, and Smuva Shongwe, Parliament.
Contractors in the kingdom have welcomed the Construction Industry Council's move to tighten controls against fraudulent practices in the sector. Well, they say that those who submit false documents and engage in collusion are damaging the reputation and integrity of the entire construction industry.
Contractors in the kingdom have spoken out in support of the Construction Industry Council warning against fraud and misrepresentation in the sector. They have strongly condemned the actions of individuals who submit falsified documents to secure upgrades, saying such practices damage the integrity and reputation of the entire construction industry.
Kunemthetho yokucategorize ama-contractors. Lo mthetho loyo siyathanza ukuthi ulandzelwe kahle kuze kutokhona kuphuma ema-contractors lane quality letsite yekwenta umsebenzi.
The contractors stated that those engaging in fraudulent activities are compromising the credibility of legitimate players and called for stricter monitoring to protect the sector's image. They also highlighted the need for the Construction Industry Council to strengthen its oversight and ensuring that all associations and contractors operate transparently and within the law.
So contract ke sitamjezisa ngekuthi simemuke certificate lasitfolile saka CIC anganokwati ukuthola imisebenzi ngoba vele kusho kona ukuthi akakhona le certificate lasitfolile usithola ngemgonyati.
The Construction Industry Council's registration and grading analyst Lomalanga Dlamini says the council will not hesitate to take legal actions against those found guilty of fraudulent practices. Dlamini says that all individuals or companies involved in forgery. Dlamini says that investigation done by the council revealed that some contractors had submitted falsified project completion letters and collusive project claims in attempts to secure higher grades. The construction industry remains one of Eswatini's key drivers of infrastructure development, contributing 3.4% to the country's gross domestic product and employing 6.5% of the nation's workforce. Reporting Sondomlangeni, Babane.
In our sports news, the organization governing the sport of netball in the Kingdom of Eswatini is looking at ways to develop the game among young players and women by having under 20 players compete together with senior players in the sport. They also engage both women and men to help raise the standard of women in the game. And Kusile, the treasurer of the organization, says they aim to have an under 20 team ready by the time the Region 5 games arrive in Maputo.
We are on a move to prepare for a World Cup qualifiers, which will be held in Kenya next year, 2026, and also Region 5 for under 20, later is Mozambique. So what we have formulated is we take Lama national teams, women's, a senior team itawudlala ku National League, SBS National League male division, idlale against the male teams for them to gain exposure in terms of the speed.
Kunene states that they want the under-20 team to play together with the senior players so that they can quickly adapt to a higher level of performance in preparation for the Region 5 Youth Games to be held in Maputo.
Maybe our level of play is a bit ngaphasi, so we are trying to improve the performance. And also, under 20, when I join the women's elite league, SBS elite league, now it's the same concept. You would see sifuna bajwayele playing at higher tempos, at 11 lengetulu kwalena lebayijwayele, so that i-performance yabo ibe ngathi ngilengcono mase siya ku-commit ngaphandle, because the last performance yethu we're not happy ngayo.
Kunene also mentions that the reason for having both women and men play is to help the women team to have practice match, as they can't have funds for friendly games outside the country. However, now that they are playing with the men, they'll be able to train better, even though they will not be able to send the female national team to the Africa Games Championships in Malawi due to the lack of funds.
That marks the end of our English news. We'll go for a net break. We have an interview for you when we return.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna senze ukukhicita lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome back. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show right here on Eswatini TV. Now on Friday, October 17th, Eswatini will actually be joining the global community in commemorating the International Day of the Girl Child. This day is especially observed on the 11th of October every year, but will be commemorated locally on Friday, which is tomorrow at Lubombo Central High School in Sitegi, which now I want to believe it's a reminder that investing in girls is not a charitable cause, but is also a strategic imperative for national development and social justice, but most importantly, lasting peace, which is why my guests this morning are Zenanile Dlamini, UNFPA Eswatini Gender and Youth Analyst, as well as Nomzamo Dlamini, who is the Director of Gender and Family Issues at the Deputy Prime Minister's Office. A very good morning to you, ladies, and thank you so much for coming to our studios. Are you okay?
Yes. We're good, thank you. Yes,
good. So I'd like to start with you, Director. On this day of the International Day of the Girl Child, how does your office, Nunghulmende, how do you assess the state of girls' rights in the country in terms of accessing healthcare, in terms of accessing quality education? What do you make of it?
Sibonge nothile ngiqale nje ngikuvusela ababukeli emakhaya ngiphinde ngivusele nakuwe siphinde sibonge lithuba lekuthini simeme nalomhla ekseni sitohlangana esito khuluma kabandi ngalolu suku lolumcoka nakangaka ngingaqala nje ngisho ngithi ihlangothi lethu idepartment yethu leyadiwa ngeDepartment of Gender and Family Issues yona imandate yayo vele ibuke loku promoter inhlala kahle nentuthuko yebesifazane nebesilisa ngiyaphinza besifazane nebesilisa kunjalo sikhuluma lapha ngabomake ngabobabe ngibamfana labangemamfombatane nebamfana laba bafana kepha ke umsindvo vele uba mningi solo siyachubeka umsindvo wethu usesemningi ekukhulumeleni noma ngithi ekupromotheni tindzaba tebesifazane bamfana bangemamfombatane nabomake ingani ngoba tinombolo tethu tincaningo letendiwe phambilini nalesi kubonako lesikobservako sisesihlete office na emihla nemalanga kuyaveta lokho ukuthi kusesekhona lapho khona besifazane basahishekile basasalile ngemuva kepha ke siya acknowledge nalokho ukuthi nalaba besilisa kukhona tindzawo nabo lapho bahisheka khona lokubenta ukuthi basalele emuva enfuthukweni thineke imandate yethu la ekupromotheni but ibuka kakhulu lokuthi ibeke imithetho kushayeke imithetho lapho kudzingeka khona umthetho iyakhe ema policies mangabe kuyabonakala ukuthi mhlawumbe lawo ma policies lawo leyo mithetho mhlawumbe seyiphelele isikhathi sekunetindzaba letinsha letifuna ukuthi tifakwe la mithetho enakula ma policies kungumsebenzi wethu ukuthi konke lokho sikusebende nalawo ma stakeholders la ka relevant from government to civil society to ma traditional spaces to academia to iparliament as well so isimandla kakhulu ngalapho kepha kwesiphindze sibuye sehle futhi kancane ekutheni lokho lokula kule mithetho nalamigomo lesiyipushe ukuthi ishayo nama ibekwe sibese siphindze sichubeka ukuthi siboneke ukuthi iyasetshenziswa yini ngulawo ma stakeholders ethu lesiphindze sisebende nawo ngidawubekisa nje ukuthi siya monitor le implementation yaleyo policy ngidawubekisa thina njena sichuba phambili noma ngithi sisebenta kakhulu ngale gender policy, and le gender policy vele lapha ekhathi inayo ngisho nale thematic area yaka girl child. So kwekuthi sibuke ukuthi ema partners ethu lesisebenzisana nawo sinabo UNFPA sinabo European Union bese sinalaba abafundi labangumkhono waleli office laba le on the ground. Sina Minister of Education siyabona promote education of bamfana bonke but isiphinze sibuke ukuthi umfana lo involved nakufika kutemfundo unalo ithuba lokuthi naye participate esikoleni naloku access nje imfundo siphinde sibuke nihlala kahle nekuphatheka kwakhe la asesekhona khona la esikoleni kunengi ke nothile lokuye kuvele ezisisa kusebenza kanjalo but ke lokunye lesikwendako vele sil office kuthuthukisa yena umfana lo involved kwenda incwaningo kubuka ukuthi mhlawumbe ngabekisa nje indzaba lenkulu naye violence against children. Siyalenda licwaningo sibe ukuthi kubangelwa yini vele ukuthi umfana nomfombatane ahlukubeteke ngalendlela. Lesinye isikhathi nje uma sibona lokho ukuthi lokuhlukubeteka kwanze enzaweni asengibekise nje mabomu ngithi eshiselweni sitawuhamba siye eshiselweni sizame ukuthi sicoce noma sendelelo cwana ukuthi kwendiwa yini inhlelo mhlambe noma yini lokungendiwa kwekuthi sikhute lo mkhuba ukuthi kulungiseke lokuyimbangela noma lokufaka sandla ekutheni umfana lo involved angakhona ukuphatheka kahle angakhona ukuphila kahle noma ahlukubeteke khona lapha. So kuba kunengi ngale ndlela lokunye ke ngilokuthi sichubeke futhi sifundzise nangala malungelo ebamfana labangamanfombadana bumcoka bemfana lo involved ukuthi naye atfole lithoba lelilingene nalo ngumfana ukuthi akhona ukuparticipate edinveni letiningi especially letifaka infuthuko yakhe infuthuko yemango wakhe infuthuko yelive.
You know, Director, I'll have to hand it to your office. These policies, siyawabona, they're in place and they are fully effective. We are seeing girls there in school. Not only are they in school, but they also do have access to quality education, which speaks to they graduate now. It's just a matter of fighting unemployment, but nonetheless, they've been afforded the opportunities that they deserve. I'd like to come to you, Zenanile. UNFPA, you are a critical force when it comes to advancing sexual and reproductive health rights for adolescent girls. In practical terms, how do you think these efforts have shifted the trajectory, of girls' lives, particularly in the area of teenage pregnancies, reducing HIV infections, and to some extent increasing the school completion rates?
Thank you very much, Natsile, and good morning to all the viewers at home. You're very right in saying that UNFPA, which is the UN Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Agency, we work very particularly when it comes to advancing the rights, not only of girls, like what Ashito director, but even of boys. But obviously, when we speak to reproductive health rights, the focus tends to be a lot more on our girls. And you know that one of the issues that we are battling with as a country is that of teenage pregnancy, as well as access to sexual and reproductive health commodities for our girls and our boys. So as UNFPA, I think we work very well with partners like the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, as well as the DPMO's office in terms of ensuring that our girls are getting access to the commodities that they need. These are the likes of the contraceptives, that they actually even have the information that they need when it comes to their sexual and reproductive health. We work very closely with our CSOs as well because they are the ones that are on the ground. For example, we do work around, recently we had the Umhlangari dance, and we make sure that we participate there because obviously that attracts thousands of our young maidens, our young girls, the adolescents and young girls in the country. So we ensure that in spaces like that, we plug ourselves in so that we can be able to spread the information there. We have organizations like Kulisa Umbana that we work with, where we are able to advocate for not advocate, but also send information, educate our young girls around issues of sexuality, around their sexual reproductive health rights, around what is available for them in terms of exercising their rights and knowing what to do when it comes to their sexual reproductive health life in its entirety. So when we get to those platforms, you get to see that a lot of girls actually don't have the information, even on simple things like your period, menstruation, how do you go about handling that? How do you go about transitioning in puberty, for example? We also have programs that also target, for example, parent-to-child communication. And we see that because we also, through one of our programs, which is called the Safeguard Young People program, we are also focusing on how to strengthen basically the life skills education. We work a lot with the Ministry of Education around that. And you often find that sometimes as parents and as guardians, we often leave the responsibility of educating our young girls and boys on issues of sexuality, on issues of their growth. We leave it to the teachers. And at the same time, you find that there's a lot of backlash that is there around comprehensive sexuality education or life skills education, as we call it in our country. But yet, we are expecting the teachers or the education system to be the one that informs our children. So through the programs that we run, the parent-to-child communication programs, we are saying that we want the conversation to start in the household, to say that parents must be able to comfortably talk to their children about issues of sexuality, about issues of their rights, about issues of gender-based violence, for example, about issues of how can I, as a child, be it a boy or a girl, be able to speak out, be able to occupy space in my community, be able to exercise my rights, and be able to be of a good influence and impact in my community and my society as a whole. So it's through programs like that where we want our young girls and boys, but our young girls to be empowered with information. I think when you have information, you're able to then make the right decisions about your life.
Right. I want to come to you, Director, but please allow me to get a little carried away here. Zenanile, conversations in an African household on sexual reproductive health rights. Once you mention sex, it's a bizarre, already it's a no-go zone topic as such. But in one country, if I recall, it's Kenya, if not Nigeria, they did have a policy that said access to contraceptives for young adults is actually the legal age would be 18 without parental consent. But now they reduced it to 12. And they said now a 12-year-old can actually get contraceptives just over the counter, no need for anything, anything written or the diplomacy. But I would like to know, do you think this could be a remedy to actually reducing teenage pregnancies?
I don't think that when we say we making available the contraceptives at maybe 12 or 10 could be a remedy. I think the important thing is addressing the drivers of teenage pregnancy, and they are different in different communities. In our country, for example, you find that issues of poverty are the ones that are at the forefront. A lot of young girls are susceptible to relationships with older men specifically because of issues of poverty, because of issues of unemployment, because of issues of lack of access to education. So I think when we address the drivers of teenage pregnancy in our country, then we'll be able to see what exactly do we need to speak into. Because whether or not we're saying we are making contraceptives available at the age of 12, at the age of 15, at the age of 18, if someone is still not empowered enough to be able to make a decision, an informed decision about their life, we won't be addressing the issue. Because you find that even if you can make the contraceptive available, but if someone still believes that for me, maybe they feel like for me to have value, I need to have to sleep with someone. You're not addressing the issue. You're just putting a bandage by making the contraceptives available. Although the availability is also a plus, because even if you're saying for someone, if they want to make the decision to have consensual sex, they should be informed on the available products that are there for them. But I think at the crux of it is addressing the drivers of teenage pregnancy in our country.
Fair enough. Director, I want to come to you. With existing policies and programs, we still continue to face, teenage pregnancies. We still continue to witness headlines almost daily on gender-based violence in the country. Yini lama cultural factors perhaps that you think are contributing, to these cycles that are perpetuating and actually advancing the challenge?
Okay. Once again, maybe what we see it's social factors than cultural factors. Social factors, there's peer pressure from just their peers within the spaces labagiwe. Kuphindze kube nale issue yekubalansa i-information labayitfola emakhaya etikolweni nakulama programs lesikhulume ngawo vis-a-vis what they also get la ku internet social media, what is trending. Uma nje bengingabekisa ngetikhathi letengcile lesikhulele mhlambe kito not so long ago nakhona i-pregnancy was lihlazo. But today It's normal. Yabona. Such that uma lo mncane uzendele ngisho ibaby shower. Yabo. Kufuneka bese yakhuda than promoting. Exactly. Nama baby shower ngathi sekanza kula kibo kunathi thina sibadzala. So kunale balance yale information ezena ashedile. Siba zama kubaniketa information as much as information lebalungene futhi sibona ukuthi itabasita etikhatsini labengcaki into basa transition to adulthood. Phinze information yoku survive nje bo preparation and stuff, but then le issue lengikhuluma ngayo akhona ke kushintsha kwedikhathi. I think lokunye ke I think zena sokukhulumile ngako tindzaba the violence kakhulu. La violence okuyinto kubonakala including nala teenage pregnancy as well. Nale family, the family structure sekude. Lapho khona kutaba namake ekude, kutaba nababe ekude, kutaba nagogo ekude, kutaba nalabatali lengibabalako labatawu ba nemdlandla wekuthi babakhulise babanikete information noma ngithi babanikete lwati ngeke ukuthi nawu imvombatane iyakena ukhula kubhekeke ini kuwe kuloko lokubhekekile yini wena lo ngayenda yini lekufanele uyende kufuneka utiphathe kanjani kuchoose abangani na uchoose nje umuntu lotawuthi ngumngani wami lona yini lo ibukako. So le family lokufa kwale family structure as well, the family fabric as well nako kuyasifaka sandla kunathi dinkinga leso tonke lesesikhuluma ngako kanti ke ekhathi kwako kuphinze kube nanayi imiphumela yemikhuhlane lesibuya kiyo ngiyabe kusabo COVID. Lamanye emakhaya asele kusele bamfana bafana batali bahambile. Ira HIV as well solo nakhona lapho sandla isifakile. So lokufa kwale structure lapho umfana atawukhulela khona ayaleke khona sekude. Phinze ngete ukuthi tikwe mndeni phela itolo umfana bekangasiye wakha kubo kuphela beka wemanga. Mangihamba nje ngingimakela mangweni ngimbona misbehavior bekukhuda futhi naye ethuke noma ngoba sikhathi sekhula ngeke usiphikise noma ngasekendeka bayaganga bebabhaca. Yeah, but lo muhla halala nje kanjalo times have changed. But nje nakhona lapho ku encourage batali ku encourage ma guardians ku encourage umango ukuthi asingapheli emandla labamfana lesi nabo namuhla emangweni lababamfana namuhla kusasa kubhekeke ukuthi kube ngibona bamvula abazali kube ngibona bamvula batawu hola live ngibe ngibona bamfu labatawu hola imimango kutaba ngibona bamfu labatawu bamba ema positions lathite lakata ma institutions lakathite lakatawu thuthukisa lona le live. So kwamele ukuthi sidlale kahle neatly lenzima yethu ye parenting at this point in time.
I'm glad you bring up Kuti Lamakaya. There's a breakdown in terms of structural parenting and communication. Modern day parenting is actually just difficult and very different because we are being sort of you fear to overstep. So I do think this is something that as Eswatini we need to look into how we parent not just lower but also Naloa Makelwan. Zena, I'd like to come to you. Theme Yalonyaga, it speaks to the girl child or the power of investing in the girl child. The theme actually says, the girl I am, the change I lead, girls on the front lines of crisis. From your perspective as an agency, what does investing in girls truly mean?
Investing in girls means, I'll go back to the issue of information, empowering them to be actually taking space in communities. I think when we empower girls, Guti, you also have the capacity and the ability to lead, you know, in spaces where you're at. Even in areas that might seem to be previously, Guti, they are known, Guti, they are male-dominated areas. Girls need to be empowered. Guti, but Guti, nami injenge mfombatana. Niyakona, for example, to be an engineer. Niyakona, for example, to be an architect. In spaces where men are the ones who are dominating, I'm able to be a mechanic, for example. And not just that, because I think a lot of the times, sibuga loguti, empowerment of girls then means it is empowerment of boys, which is not the case. I think we need to appreciate the fact that for the longest time, the inequality has existed between the boys and the girls. So now we are not wanting to make girls boys, but we are saying we want girls to be able to be afforded the same opportunities as the boy child.
Right.
And I think that's what empowerment of the girl child meaning. Girls are at the forefront, of crisis. They are empowered to lead. They are able to make decisions that are able to drive change, change that we can see in our societies. And I think that if as a country, we have done a lot in terms of capacitating our girl children. We even have a lot of our industry or captains of industry who play their part in encouraging girls to come along, look at me, here I am, you can also be where I am. And I think for girls to know that the fact that I'm a girl is not a disadvantage for me, but it's actually something that I can use to my advantage in terms of entering in spaces and taking up space.
Right.
Yeah.
Director, she touched on women empowerment, girl child empowerment, and of late, the conversation is loud on how women need to be empowered and equipped, with the potential and capacity that they can handle. In fact, they need to lead when it comes to STEM subjects. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I'd like to get to the aspect of technology. We live in a digital age where access to technology, it in its own unique way, it defines who gets a chance to succeed. How do you think a digital divide, especially among girls, it exacerbates inequalities lakhona?
Well, Natile, the digital divide, I think we have started seeing the negative impact yayo. Starting from just accessing the tools themselves. Vele kuseselula kokuthi nje umfana lo ngumfana uyathi hlanganisela so unayo i-gadget thike la ifunako laptop, a smartphone, not just a phone, a smartphone. You see? Exactly. And yena ngalendlela lena so connectile nemhlaba wonke. Kanti lolo solo ku-edele access just to the tool itself. So vele so selling emuva. Namhlanje sikubonako bantfu labasha nje kakhulu ba active etindzabeni temabhizinisi. Siyababona bayathengisa, they are using the very same digital space. A lot of platforms e-commerce are developed here. Siyababona insha isebenzisa lawo mathuba kuthengisela sive within Eswatini boundaries and beyond. But lolo sete nangathi njena emamvombatane lakasalele ngemuva even just in owning or accessing leyo gadget so vele usalele ngemuva. Imfundvo nyalo ukhanza ukuthi ikolo letinye setiyasho ukuthi asisathengi ema-textbooks, but so uvele anikwe i-link ukuthi kodwa incwadi sothathola la kusho ukuthini ke kulona losalele emuva even just in accessing or having the tool yekuthi akhone ku-accessa lwadi and ema-homeworks akhe tfole ama-assignments and i-research yakhe ngendlela lefanele. So lona lesimbuka kwekuthi so vele unayo lelo tools uyakhona yena kwenda le dot involved kepha lona soselele ngemuva. Lokunye ke lesikubonile noma lokusoloku kwendeka, yes we do understand ukuthi as parents siba nako kwekuthi sisena le fear uyayona nje the digital space, but of course lokunye ku-infonywa ngema experiences nema ndabekisa nje even the news what we hear. Children being trafficked, girls especially being trafficked.
What are you being exposed to online?
Being exposed to information le way ngetulu kwabo lebese bafundisa imikhuchana letsit. Lokunye lokufaka ekhathi kwekuthi kunebamvu nje ukhanza ukuthi ba advertise imisebenzi lengekho emathuba abroad la ngekho in lengekho bese they take advantage of the girls. So we do understand na lokho, but at the same time siyabona ukuthi tinfo lama risk la khona even on the online platforms or in the digital space ngiwona lamanye la kenda kwekuthi labanye balabamfana umfana lo imfombatane versus umfana lo ngumfana ukhanze kwekuthi akakhoni ku participate kahle ngekufisa kwakhe nekutilize the digital space as kufanele.
I just sorry, Nomzamo, to jump in on that one. Nivangazuti, she's raising a very valid point, because especially on the issue of being left behind from Batan. I think as Batali also there's a fear you would see if of which is not necessarily there when it comes for the boy child.
Exactly.
And you find those fears are what then you as a parent, you think you're doing good, but you're actually also limiting their access as well. Because in as much as there are the negative impacts of social media, of the phone, there's the good as well. And I think because maybe sometimes as parents they run away from the responsibility. Good, see, you can be able to open up the opportunity for your children, but also monitoring. There are many ways of doing that now. You are able to even get apps where you are able to see what your child is doing on their phone and their gadgets. Because when you close off the opportunity completely, you are closing them even to other opportunities that they have. For example, now there's the issues of content creation. Young people are thriving there.
They can make
there's the
money from
issues
that.
exactly, and you can monetize your content, your creativity. And you can market your business, you can market your skills, the things that you're doing. And you can even access information. Like, for example, we, together with the National Youth Council, there's an app called the Tune Me app, where young people are able to access information about sexual reproductive health. They're able to get reminders to take their medication, where they can access commodities, all of these things. So there are the good parts of these things, but also it goes back down to what Nomzamo said, the role of the parents as well. Let's not leave the parenting responsibility to someone else, but you can also monitor how your child is using their gadgets to ensure that the access to the digital space, the digital divide is bridged, for both girls and the boys.
Right, fair enough. Senanile, thank you so much. And also to you, Director, thank you both for coming. I really hope the girls were listening to this one. Make use of your social or mobile devices to monetize your content. There's the issue of content creation. Be sure you use it smart, you use it wisely. And to the parents, don't leave the parenting to teachers or community members or caregivers. Also play your part. Communicate with your girl children, especially with your daughters, especially in family setups. That was Zenanile Dlamini, who is the UNFPA Eswatini Gender and Youth Analyst. And also we had the Director of Gender and Family Issues from the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, Nomzamo Dlamini. We were discussing the International Day of the Girl Child. Otherwise, this is the part where we wrap up the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care.